for it to come up on the. It takes a couple of. It takes a minute or two for it to actually come up.
Actually hit the feed. Let's see if we're live. Zencast is recording.
It says live in my thing.
We are live.
We are live, motherfuckers. Awesome.
Language. We're live, guys.
There we go. Let's mute this. All right, let's do this. What's up, everybody? Welcome to DZR Engage, episode 25. We are 25 years old. It's our 25th anniversary, and it's a good time to have it on the division. On the division weekend. It's a good place to have it. We've been binary. We've been pretty busy. In between, I was looking at some stuff this afternoon. I put one shot, and I think I tweeted out Rick Salat's post to go live. And then I watched another one and then put another one to bed. And then I was back on doing something. And I've had, we've had Twitch windows, Twitter windows, and YouTube windows, and Discord, and multiple profiles open. It's been nuts. How's it been for you?
I am absolutely fucking shattered.
This is your
my fingers
fourth
are
podcast.
bleeding. Look,
how many podcasts have you done?
No, I've done. This is my fourth show in 4 days. Yeah, it's pretty brutal, but no, it's been amazing. The support and the rallying around from people across the entire division community, content creators, is just it's been outstanding. Like, you could have asked for anything more for a second iteration or second wave, second deployment over the weekend. Fucking rock on! Like, absolutely brilliant. Like, you just can't fathom it. And the amount of donations, so almost £200. So it's like $250 has been raised for Rexlat's charity. Just from the kindness of people gaming. And it's going towards a fantastic cause and sponsoring, a fantastic family raising money for charity. You couldn't ask for anything.
Yes, it's good news to have people on board that, as you say, just make it something special. And there was a few good stories that, I think some of the commenters were sharing in Rick's feed earlier tonight, talking about some personal experiences that they've had, and it was really touching. And then immediately after that, there was some camaraderie going on. It was a very strange Twitch chat.
It got very weird.
It got really weird really quick. It went from really sincere and amazing. Look, that's the internet, baby. That's what it is. I'm Ogaz. You might remember me from such shows as Today We Live, Tomorrow We Die, and Gladys, the Groovy Mule. And of course, I've already introduced the amazing, effervescent Mike Binary Num, who's been busy and tired. But of course, Elias, you're going to be our staple mate for today because you've been hiding, playing Bloodborne and doing other things under the radar for the last couple of days, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of Bloodborne. I'm playing a game from 2 years ago. How's that for your topical podcast content? But no, views and reviews. That's right. I'm always here to bring the Dark Souls.
Awesome. What has it been doing? So Blackborn, you've been.
Well, there was the Dark Souls 3 DLC came out, the final DLC, the Ring City. So maybe we'll talk about that later, which is I have mixed feelings about. And there's a brand new game from Ron Gilbert called Thimbleweed Park, which he's the guy who created Monkey Island, effectively. And it's like a throwback adventure game. It's like classic pixel art, point and click adventure, funny writing, all that sort of thing. So that's the other thing I've been playing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I tried out that Splatoon test fire. Did you try that out, Binary, over the weekend?
I didn't get a chance to. No, I was playing Sea of Thieves.
So that was last weekend. That was the first time.
Oh, that was
that was
weekend.
The first time
I didn't get to.
First time I tried out the Switch on an online game, and Splatoon's like this really fun shooter, third-person shooter. But instead of killing other people, which you can do, you shoot them with ink. The main goal of the game is actually to get ink all over the arena. So it's actually really interesting and fun. Yes.
You're shooting ink all over the arena. Go on, just go on.
That's right. Yeah, and the And the team who's shot the most ink all over the floor and all up the walls it's just is the team that wins. It's a really cool idea. It's really fun. It's very safe for kids, despite Gaz's dirty mind. And and you can turn into a squid and like swim through the ink, you know. So anyway, This was the first time I got to test out a multiplayer game on the Switch, and it was a disaster. So I got one game in. The game ran fine, and then I just couldn't connect again, and it just said like problem with the server. And I'm like, oh shit, is it my Wi-Fi? Am I having Wi-Fi problems, or is it? It turned out, you know, but I went to the store, it was all fine. But yeah, in the end, it was just the servers weren't hacking the load, so I actually could only get 2 games in the whole weekend. It didn't help that you could only play for 3 hours on each day.
It was a tight window, wasn't it? Yeah, Nintendo opening it up.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm just going to curb my enthusiasm on Splatoon 2 and just wait and see, I think.
Yep.
What about you? I mean, Gaz, have you been playing anything, or have you just been like knee deep in that DCW?
I've been Mass Effecting during the week, but mostly, doing art and creating some, you know, some of the images and some of the Twitter stuff over the last probably 3 or 4 days that I wanted to try and get in there on time. But yeah, Mass Effect, mostly I've been dabbling with a few, watching videos for some Battalion 1944. But Brian really knows about some of the nuances behind Battlefield 1944, but I've talked about this before. It was the game I mentioned, in our 2016 year-end podcast. I mentioned my anticipated game. One of them was the Battalion 1944, because it's like it harkens the Medal of Honor and Call of Duty FPS Quake 3 days, and even everything to this point, where in Unreal 4, the dudes have coded in the 2 issues, of course, were that when you jumped out of a door in Quake 3, you could strafe jump. You might remember strafe jumping. Of course, it was a thing, and it was actually a bug. You weren't really meant to be able to do that concept of jumping and strafing whilst in air. It became this thing. It was Quake 3, and it became the old school shooter mentality. So these guys, credit to them, this is Bulkhead Interactive, and they have now done so well on Kickstarter, which I kickstarted with them, or donated to them whenever it was, a year ago. They've now got the Square Enix Collective as a publisher. So big shout out.
Oh, cool.
Like, you guys just got Square Enix Collective, who are known for this kind of stuff. They back, it's like their Square Enix area that back these parts of games.
Like they back like indie projects and stuff like that.
Correct. Yeah. And so it's a massive move that they've been able to get from Kickstarter now to actually have a publisher behind them.
That's awesome.
Hopefully that means they can get it, because they've been busy in Unreal 4 coding the discrepancies of Quake 3. That's crazy. Like they're trying to code in glitches that were part of a previous engine.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
That's awesome. Now there's something quite significant that we've actually neglected to mention. One is that we're actually streaming live to the internet right now. So this is, you guys have done this a while ago, but we're live out there. So this could be an interesting podcast, because we might end up using some visual props, which won't be amazing for the audio guys. We also might get distracted by the chat. There's a live chat happening, so feel free to join that. But already it's turned into a little bit of a homoerotic space, just like Rick Salat's Twitch comments. So so that's happening. This is cool. If this works out, we might keep doing it in the future. It's it's pretty fun, and it's really nice to get feedback immediately. Guys, compliment us as much as possible. Don't say anything mean. We're very, very sensitive, soft souls.
We need ego inflation.
Elias, you're the master of context, my friend. Thank you. It's a really important point. And of course, while we're doing all this stuff and while we're looking at games and talking about what's awesome, it would be futile for us to forget and to put aside Destiny 2, which has just dropped the trailer We're going to find out more about it on the 18th of May, I think it was. They said just before E3, we're going to find out some more news. We'll see the first gameplay of Destiny 2. But we saw 2 teaser trailers. I mean, I might go to you, Elias, first. You're the long-standing Destiny guy out of the 3 of us, probably. Binary certainly got into it in the later stages. I've dabbled. But what did you take away from the trailer? What did you notice? What did you enjoy? What was it? Was it what you expected?
I didn't like the trailer. It didn't feel genuine. It felt like just some pure Activision marketing speak. It was like 2 characters from the game giving these rousing speeches to the troops. One of them being genuine, the other one being Cade 6, who's like this smart ass robot. But they kind of turned him up to 11, and it didn't gel with me. It just didn't. I didn't give a shit. Which is sad. And I was like, oh, hang on, what was it that got me marketing-wise into the original Destiny? And to be honest, I'm starting to think maybe it was that Led Zeppelin track they used. Do you remember they licensed the Immigrant song? And they had this fantastic CGI trailer with the Immigrant song in the background. And the guys running over the hill with the guns and looking really fucking sweet. And you're like, whoa, that looks amazing. Whereas here they tried to kind of tell, it's a little bit story based, but it wasn't in a way that resonated with me at all. So if you're going to do the story stuff, I don't think they did that very well. And they didn't show us that it was really cool. Now we've definitely got some, and I can understand why people love it, by the way. It just rubbed me the wrong way because I'm kind of getting sick of the hype cycles and I'm sick of seeing the same trailer all the time. And I feel like that was the same thing I always seen. So we've actually got some feedback in the chat already from Eidolon Fox, who's saying that, I'm a heretic. And that the trailer was awesome. And I get that. I get that, people might like that. I did laugh once in the trailer, but it did not increase my my hype over Destiny at all. I was just kind of like, meh, all right.
So did they over-exaggerate the character for you? Is that, because, again, as a non-profit for the series myself, I fucking loved it, but that might be because I don't know the Cade 6. So was Cade 6 a different? You said, did they just turn him up? Is that not what he's like in Destiny 1? Is any of this humor in Destiny 1?
There's a little bit of it in Taken King. So what they've done is they've kind of amped it up from Taken King, but it felt like marketing rather than something genuine. That was my main criticism of it. I don't know if that's going to be reflective in the game, but it just, Elvin Rush is in the chat and he's saying he thought the trailer was a nice tease. I get that. There's some cool things there. They're going to shake up the world a little bit, but I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just over hype cycles at this point. Maybe I think I might still be feeling that bum rush from Mass Effect. That's got me feeling a bit deflated. Like, what did you think, Binary? That's right. I said bum rush, chat.
I did really like it, and I do agree. Clyde was a little bit overdone. He had in Destiny 1, he had a sense of humor that wasn't too in your face, but it was subtly dry. It was a very dry sense of humor, right? And it worked. This was much more sort of American in your face humor. Like,
this just got racial.
So I think it's obviously catering to a different market. I think it felt a little bit more Blizzard than Activision. It definitely felt like a little bit more Blizzard.
It felt more Activision marketing than it felt Bungie.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like Bungie because Bungie's about the freaking gameplay,
Yeah.
And
but it's still letting me enough to go and pre-order. That's still pre-ordered off the back.
That's because you pre-order everything Binary.
It's September. It's September, right?
It is September.
2nd of April. It's not even Easter, and you already you already are a stakeholder in this company. Next question is how much of investment are you a stakeholder of this?
Right. So this is where I'm backtracking.
And did you get the insurance? These are the 2 questions.
So I did pre-order the collector's edition on PS4, but that was before what I saw what was in it. And then when I saw what was in the collector's edition, I cancelled that pre-order and then pre-ordered the deluxe edition on PS4 and PC.
Oh wow! So you got money. 2.
Yeah.
Now it's actually worth pointing out. It's on PC, guys. Like Destiny 2 is coming to PC, so that's brand new. So obviously, it's not coming to 360, not coming to PS3. We didn't expect that to happen, but it is coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. So that's pretty big news for PC players who never had a chance to play it. And I don't know. I think playing on PC could be really different because it felt beautiful on the controller. I'd be very curious to know what that game plays like with a keyboard and mouse, and just how good people can get.
Well, that's the thing, I think. And the other thing is Draven pointed this out in chat a few days ago when we were talking about it. And if you know what we're talking about, of course, we're talking about the Discord community. If you can jump into dzrgaming.com and you click on join the Discord, and you can have a chat to awesome people like Draven as well. And Draven said, what will this do, or pose the question, what would this do to the context of streaming and the existing streamers of Destiny 2? Because make no mistake, the market and the amount of audience members that PC streamers attract far greater than your traditional, perhaps PC 4 or console. So that actually, it means that first of all, Destiny 2 is going to be a much greater exposure in terms of the streaming audience. But also that might be problematic for existing streamers that sort of grew up with Destiny on console.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. But yeah, and you look, sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to add that I am keen to see the gameplay footage, and I think the gameplay footage is what might get me excited again. These kind of CG trailers are just always, I don't know, they're never representative.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the gameplay trailer is what's going to sell it. I just can't wait. Destiny 2 and next generation graphics. What functionality are they actually going to be deploying, and how much resources are they actually going to be utilizing in PS4 Pro? Are they going to have anything to do with? Are they going to get an early release of Scorpio so that they can work for content for Scorpio 2? I'm just excited. That's why I'm not actually buying it on Xbox, but I'd be interested to see.
What's the bet? What's the bet within the month? Binary has pre-ordered the Xbox version as well, so we just have it on all 3 formats.
No.
Three collector's editions.
No. Division will always be my Xbox, but Destiny I'd like to pick up on my PS4.
But why PC? Why did
actually, Elvin Rush in the chat's actually got a pretty interesting point, which is he wants to see how they transition from map to map. If I see another ship for 5 minutes, I'm out. Like, one of the big criticisms legitimately about Destiny is you're sitting there watching your freaking ship for like 5 to 10 minutes while you're waiting for either loading or matchmaking or whatever. And there's a moment in Destiny where you get a different ship. You can switch out your ships and you can get new ships. And that's like a godsend. It's like, I get to stare at a different ship for 10 minutes. Oh, thank God. I swear half my Destiny game clock is probably staring at that ship. Good point. Good point, Elvin. I'm also keen to know, like, how many maps are we going to get? Because that was certainly a criticism of the first game, was people thought we'd get like 30 maps and we ended up with like 5 or something. It was there wasn't a whole lot of variety, but they were very good. They were really interesting places. So I mean, I want to be surprised. I'd like them to pull a Bungie and do something innovative, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was curious to see what that collector's edition had. And Belner, you said you cancelled it. It has a backpack. I'm
not paying $100 for a backpack.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool looking backpack, but it's still a backpack. But Inside the backpack, you get
Give me a 14-inch statue.
All right, I got one right here. But in addition to that, you get a solar blanket. Have you always wanted a solar blanket, Binary?
Is that for all those cold nights out on the moon's surface?
Yeah, it's like
otherwise known as just outside London.
Yeah, but it's a survival kit that they're trying to emulate, I guess, in terms of the game. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's not as funky as I suppose most collector's editions. But I think the standard edition will do me, and I think it'll be PS4. That's where I'm going, I think.
Oh, good choice. The exclusives. You get the exclusives too, right?
And I'll have to pick up that Nikon controller, Binary, that you're going to talk to later on today.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
Oh yeah.
So Destiny 2, as you said, we're going to find more out about that puppy on the 18th of May, not long, and then no doubt we'll probably see even more footage, hopefully, at E3, which is following in June. Certainly, Engage will be as close as we can to that action. I don't know how we're going to plan it out, guys, but we've got a lot of work to do as June approaches. And of course, Bungie are going to do very, very well with Destiny 2, unlike Mad Cats, who are not doing so well. In fact, Elias are actually going all out of business.
Yeah, Binary shared this story, and I didn't know it until I just read it about 5 minutes ago. Yeah, Mad Cats are running out of Mad Cats run out of lives is the name of the article. Written by Rich Stanton, who also, P.S., just wrote an excellent piece on Dark Souls. So read. But I'll let you guys talk about it because I know nothing about Mad Cats.
Mad Cats, well, they've been around for decades. I remember buying Mad Cat stuff back on when I had like an N64. You know, it's famous for their arcade controllers. And it's just a sad times, really. They produce like high-end quality arcade products, and they're now gone out of business. They filed for bankruptcy. So if they file bankruptcy, they'll be selling all their IPs off for liquidation, I'm assuming. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if anyone else picks up their actual patents and sort of reproduces them out as their own, as like a Mad Catz homage. But I think it's the first well-known hardware manufacturer to go bankrupt in recent times.
Wow. Yeah, and that's almost counter to the point. I mean, there's an article we're going to talk to shortly about Game that sort of talks to the success of hardware sales. If anything, right now, people are spending more on hardware. When 10 years ago, we would never have spent $350 on a pair of headphones. But Astra A40s and A50s and others are really predominant now. Streaming equipment, cameras, green screens. I mean, all these things that people, that average gamers that stream at home are buying, and just everyday people with their tech gear. What the hell?
Yeah. It's a shame. Well, I like Mad Cats.
Yeah. They were, I think the first Mad Cats thing I had was a controller with auto fire. I think it was a SNES controller.
Yeah.
Oh, right? Auto fire controllers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they used to break the SNES. Like you'd play like Zelda 2 or something, and Link would just be going jumping up and down like a. But yeah. And that was the first thing I had. But back then they were always like nasty. But then in recent years, Mad Cats, they made like as you say, they had the license for the Street Fighter joysticks. So they spent a lot of money to get a lot of these licenses. But I think maybe that's where, I don't know, maybe that's where they went wrong. They've invested so much.
They stayed in the arcade arena, right? And they didn't move out into audio visuals. They didn't move out into new console controllers or anything like that. They stayed niche to their own market. And I think the age of emulators, the death of the arcade, they sort of just led down that road. They just didn't diversify themselves enough, I don't think. Which is a shame, really.
Yeah, and it talks a lot to the article that I think I was hitting at earlier with Game. At least you posted this, right, from Games Industry?
No. Binary's done all the work this week.
Oh, Binary,
I've just been playing Bloodborne.
At least you're honest. So Binary, somehow in between the podcasts, you did some good lists, and certainly game of interest, of course, in the UK, the predominant player. But there's no doubt, as a retail chain, they're struggling. And this article talked a lot today from Biz Industry.
Yeah. So if you're in the UK, everybody knows who Game is. It's the only major retailer for video games. There's no one else. And their biggest challenge is obviously, and their biggest cost is stores, right? So they've got about 300 or 400 stores in the UK, and that shrunk from around 600 5 years ago. Article. So Mark Gifford, who's the CEO of GameStop in America, and Martin Gibbs, who's the CEO of Game in the UK, are joining forces around certain areas. So Game's actual business model has always been storefronts, but over the last 3 years has actually, obviously from revenue drops from games because of digital sales and so forth, has actually started to expand into events. So Game's biggest money spinner at the moment is actually running events themselves or sponsoring events. So things like you've got I60, which is Insomnia 60, which is in Birmingham, I believe, in a couple of weeks. So Game's a big sponsor of that. They rent out, I think, monthly these massive gaming halls in London, Birmingham, Manchester, and hold esports competitions and things like that. In and they resell their merchandise and stuff like that. But this particular article is talking predominantly around an actual partnership between GameSpot, not a merger or anything like that, but a shared environment. So whether it's online, whether it's store space, expanding things like VR stores. So is it not Trafford? Is it Trafford Centre? I think it is Trafford Centre, or Metro Centre, sorry, Manchester way. It's a massive VR lounge where you go along and you pay like an hourly fee and you can go and play. Consolidation of stores and sort of where it's going and becoming just a little bit more user-based, right? Rather than just shipping stuff all the time. So almost like the Apple model, right? Where a store becomes an experience, which is fantastic, right? I think Game this year, the first quarter, have had like a 25% or profits, drop on last year, which is for a retailer is, that can be crippling, right? So they've got to start thinking about what they can do. So partnerships with people like GameSpot could be fantastic.
So games, it's really interesting because another article that came out this week is kind of, another news headline, is talking about GameStop's failures as well. So GameStop in the US, their hardware sales are down 29.1%. Sales are down 19.3%. And they're closing about 150 stores this year. So that's pretty interesting as well. Like, it's quite related. Like, obviously people aren't necessarily going to these specialist gaming stores. So they're kind of, they're looking at things like more technology brand shops. So things like ThinkGeek and stuff like that. I know that GameStop, I think it was last year, they started a game publishing arm. Do you remember that game Song of the Deep that Insomniac made? So I think that, Game Trust is a GameStop publishing arm. So they're looking at diversifying because just that, having a straight up game shop is just not as profitable as it used to be.
It's not, retail space is expensive. Some of these stores, they're up reach of £100,000 a year in just ground rent, right? And that's before you've had staffing. That's before you had everything else. Not to mention, business rates and stuff like that on top. It's expensive, And retail, where you're operating on low margins, right? Games probably most lucrative model is trading games, right? And we've discussed that before on other shows, right? It's the trading market. Exactly. So what else can they start to offer? And
GameStop's the same.
Yeah, and looking at things like events or experience-based shops where you can go in, you can game for a couple of hours with a few mates and rent out like some gaming space, or have mini LAN parties or VR gaming spaces and stuff like that. I think is exactly, it's bringing back like an arcade situation, right? Where people go up and, like the old arcade days. If you can start bringing that to a retail experience, I think they could probably just start doing really, really well.
So Elvin Rush is in the chat, and he's he's mentioning that he considers Game to be such a poor company that he'd rather pay more than get anything from them at all, which is interesting as well. So maybe part of this is related to kind of the reputation that both GameStop and Game have as being, places that charge too much for games, that push the pre-orders, push the secondhand stuff, and are less concerned with actually a good customer service experience, which is enough to drive people away.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've only ever had good experiences with Game, like really good experiences. Like you can buy a game cheaper in Game than you can in Xbox Live or PSN Network store. I'm actually getting something.
But do you have like an electronic? So we in Australia, we've got a place called JB Hi-Fi, which is just like a broad electronics and like everything store. They sell CDs, they sell TVs, they sell all that stuff. And I tend to buy, if I'm buying a physical game, I'll often buy it from them because it is cheaper than if I buy it from our game equivalent, which is EB Games. Do you guys have an alternative like that?
Yeah, we have a couple. We got like Curry's or PC World. That's an error, but compared to Game, there isn't. No, not an actual. Well, this is HMV, I guess, but they're not as cheap as what Game does. We've got our normal supermarkets;
right.
They start stocking games now. So we have like a stationery stroke news magazine shop called WH Smith, which is now which has a store in almost every town, right? Every major town in England. So they're now looking at becoming more of a department store, right? So now that's shared with the post office. Game are looking to have a concession stands in there, and a few other more utility-based or small product-based stores will be having their own concessions within WH Smith. So yeah, it's interesting. Look, the retail market space is interesting.
Yeah, totally. Look, I've made it clear before. I'm looking forward to the day when physical media dies and we can just buy everything digitally. And if you want to buy the toys, you buy the toys. And then hopefully the costs come down with just selling software digitally. But as it is on Steam, it's just so much cheaper on Steam right now.
You think part of that solution is not just going to be, they hinted at hardware sales in that article as well as, being at expos and events and gaming place. They talked a lot about pitching hardware and a focus on that. But the other thing might be, and this might sound strange, a bit left of field, but cosplay, right? So like Bino, you were hinting at before this idea of like this gaming environment, but if you create a culture, EB Games in Australia have got a secondary site project now called Zing. And Zing is the whole focus of Zing is meant to be pop culture. And an extension of some of those could be things like cosplay items and whatnot. I was just thinking that because Elias, I mentioned to the guys this morning on Checkpoint and Chill, I found a gaming den in my house, and it's really creepy.
A gaming den?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is where you have to touch the proprietor in a cupboard before you can actually play cards.
That's right. In the special place. And
what do you mean? Like
it's
do I need to listen to Checkpoint and Chill to find out?
No, it's just called Game. I think it's called Game Traders Live. I think is what they call it. But it's in Hornsby. You know where it's in Hornsby, and it's not far from my house. And you go in there, and I saw like Mario or something on the wall. So that's what that drew me to it. So I walked in, and I thought, "What's this? Like a new gaming shop? This is cool." So I had
Mario's been luring people into dark dens for years. But go on.
That's right. He's like, "It's me, Mario. Come into my den. I show you my sausage, my Italian sausage." And he goes, so you go into this place, and I walk in, and then I realized what I'd walked into. So in front of me was 2 Warcraft tables with just shit everywhere. Like, it's a mess, right? And then up the back, there was like 10 trestle tables all lined out. And at least, this is 2:00 in the afternoon on Saturday, at least 40 people lined out. They're still sitting at their tables playing Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering.
Right. And you said Warcraft. Did you mean Warhammer?
So, no, yeah, Warhammer, thanks.
Wow,
Yeah. So like a full, and then as I said to the guys to my left, there was there's a retro cabinet with Atari and Super Nintendo and Nintendo, and so that was my safe place. So I walked over there and kept away from the card people. I'm just not a card guy.
I don't know, man. You've got some anime hair a little bit. Like you could have walked over to the Yu-Gi-Oh guys and done some real life Yu-Gi-Oh shit. I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh.
But the reason I bring it up is I've already talked about it this morning. But I just thought to this conversation, that guy is like in a small little out of the way place that you wouldn't pick, and there was 40 people in there. Now, obviously, they were using his environment, but they were buying drinks, they were buying food.
Yeah,
they were in there hanging out. 4 of them were playing Super Smash Brothers on a 20-inch CRT, a 20-inch LCD panel. So they're all like lined up on the couch, squinting at this little TV. And so yeah, the guy's got it, and he's not a mainstream shop that you're taught like game or anything like that. So they could easily adapt, and they damn well better do. If they've lost 25% profit from last year, you can imagine the next question was, what was their loss of profit from the year before? And if you've seen that year-on-year effect, they're going to move quick if they're not moving quick already.
So Gaz, in the Gaming Den rape dungeon that you visited, did you put up some DZR posters and stuff and like promote the show and the channel?
Yep. I just dropped it. I just dropped it and said, yo, these are our Coastal football rules.
Do you know who I am? I'm Ogaz.
But I did say to the guys, the dude behind the counter, I was looking at behind the counter, and he's got 3 LCD screens up, and he was literally playing 3 different games at once. He was playing a turn-based hexagonal puzzle. I had no idea what that was. League of Legends, I knew what that was, and something else I couldn't pick up what that was. But
nice one.
Yeah. Anyway, so look, I think there is life there, so they can move on that, and hopefully they will. We've talked a lot about games and in terms of hardware and physical medium, but we know that they've become a service. This idea of games as service binary came up in the next article that you looked at from gamesindustry.biz when they talked about games as a as a service as opposed to a product.
Yeah. So, this one's probably more. It's the evolution of the community manager it's referring to specifically, which is in our life across many different games. We meet these community managers who are historically definitely more of Twitter and arranging giveaways, and some level of interaction with the actual player base. But what we're starting to see now, and I think it's probably definitely more over the last couple of years, is these community managers who are becoming more prevalent in the fact, we know physically who they are. We have direct communication with them 24 hours a day. We're watching them on live streams, playing the game and answering questions, and sort of actually bearing the brutal front, a very good side, but also a very prickly side of a gaming community. And this article is specifically around Rebecca Ford and sort of her multifaceted job around the game Warframe. But I think it's many different games. If we take Deej from Destiny, we take Matt Scotcher, for example, and also Hamish from The Division, about how, and Yannick as well, and how they're becoming these more live producers of content and community manager, right? So that they're doing these live shows. They're being completely available, and how that's going to affect things with games, which are sort of pay as a service, which are these live based games, and esports becoming more prevalent as well. Seeing as a role that you probably 5 years ago looked very, very different, and how people people like this, like Rebecca Ford, for example, are having to adapt in a way that they would never have anticipated. How hard do you think in my role, for example, my role in terms of how it changed in my real life job, I can't see it changing in my interactions or how it works. I think the infrastructure and the product that I deal with changes regularly because it's IT based, but as a physical role, I don't think it will change that much at all.
Your nearest comparison is probably the days of yore, the moderator. I mean, really, it really was, wasn't it? So in the forum space, and I remember very much going on to way back when the Activision's forums, even the EA forums for Medal of Honor years ago, we used to hang out there and chat around. And the nearest to a community manager back in the late 90s, early noughties was probably the moderator. Yeah, the moderator or the mods that were in the forums. And you usually have maybe like a key moderator or an admin, and they were pretty much the community manager. And it was basically, this game sucks, F you, and then they'd be like, delete. Or, you know, this game's awesome, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, thanks for that. And there was no, it was a very linear relationship. It was one way, and they could just completely just shut down that conversation immediately if they needed to. Much harder to do that now, no?
Yeah. You know, you're almost, you know, you potentially are trying to steer a ship with a broken rudder, right? But it's how you manage that feedback, and you know, you have a direct line to developers this way as well, which is something that gamers a few years back never had. So it's how as a role as a community manager is that going to progress, and what type of skills are you going to have to marketing person anymore, right? You know, you're a public relations, you're, you know, a TV producing, you know, you're Oprah Winfrey, you're, you know, I'm sort of broadening out a little bit, but all these different skills that you're going to need, or facets of skills that you're going to need to be able to fulfill this role, is probably pretty daunting, actually, when you think about it, right?
I mean, does anyone have?
You go.
No, I was just going to say, does anyone have, like, I'm assuming some services would have multiple community managers, right? I mean, and if not, they're going to need them. Like, you're going to need to kind of split that role into who's got the better skills, who can create the better video content, because that'll be necessary to engage the audience, and who's actually going to be good at managing that feedback, developer relationship. You know, it's a really complex role potentially, and actually the more important it becomes, the more it probably becomes a team rather than an individual.
Yeah, no, right. But I think, you know, Division at the moment is a team, right? Because you've got the guys over in Malabo in Sweden, then you've got the guys who are based in the States. So, you know, they're covering sort of around the sun in terms of community management. But when I think about what their role actually entails, I think it's actually quite a lot of stuff, from promotion to complaint handling to then actually dealing with live on TV productions at the same time. And when I think about it, 2-3 years ago, it's never an area that I would have seen gaming in at all.
Yeah,
so I take my hats off to him.
Look, I guess to sort of wrap it up, I suppose, in the context of that role, we know that the community manager role has played such a big part in the changing face of Division as a service. I think, you know, we've talked about this before. It's a bit of a dead horse, I know, but the idea that Division has become a reactive environment where the managers, the community managers, essentially became the face of the brunt of the problems that people had with the game, and then the improvements of which that they were doing to the game, and then the brunt of the complaints to the people they were complaining about the improvements that they made to improve the game at the same time. And all this while they're doing a live chat program like we're doing, like a live video stream. But to that point, to what extent do you think this is going to have an impact on Destiny 2? Do we expect let me rephrase that. We know that Destiny 2 changed a lot in its lifetime. It went from, as Elias, you pointed out so pointedly last week, from a 7 to 8 reviewed game at launch to a 9.5 at the point of Taken King. So in the mind share of people, it changed a lot, and it won people back. Do you think that this new community manager role for Destiny 2 is going to be critical to the success of Destiny 2, or do you think it's just like it's assumed now, like they've got it in the bag?
No, I don't think so. And I think there's actually a pretty good statement down here. So your community person, this is actually Rebecca Ford talking on her own. So this is her quote. But your community person, in my opinion, needs to have a visible impact on the game for the player. And that can happen in a number of ways. They don't need a skill set in acting, art, nothing like that, but something tangible that is trust building. Which I think is, if you have to be open and transparent enough, but be forthcoming enough when, if you don't know the answer to something, or there's an issue, you have to be honest and say that. And I think Matt Scotch is probably the prime example of how to build trust within a community itself. I think I've never had too much interaction with Deej, for example, but I know he's a well looked at and well thought of community, a face for a community, should we say, within Bungie. So will he probably be the man that flies the flag for the community between the developer and the gamers? I probably think so. But obviously with Destiny 2, you can probably expect now, obviously with PC, that the player base is going to expand, right? Is he going to be able to carry that mantle on its own? On his own, probably not.
Let's not forget, let's not criticize them too much, because I'm one of them as well. We're all our own different ways. The PC master race is here. Welcome, community manager. You've got a whole new audience to deal with,
and a very diverse and opinionated, probably more so opinionated market than any.
They've got hardware focused, spec focused. They want 4K and they want their 435 frames per second, and they want it now. And
they're already at their keyboards. So they can type their reviews immediately. It's just like, what the fuck? Something just happened. Alt tab.
They have Alt tab. I was going to say they've got Alt tab. They don't have to do the swiping stuff on their phones. They just hit Alt tab.
That NPC repeated a piece of dialogue.
Now we're going to hell.
So no, I think it's going to be a fascinating role, and I think it's going to become a more prevalent role, especially in game design, and in the whole hype and build up towards the release of any new IPs. I think ability of a developer now with this type of market and this type of model appearing is going to change the shape of how communities, gamers, and developers interact with each other. It's going to be it's almost like you take the face of like Phil Spencer from a hardware standpoint of view, right? Nakamoto, right? All these people that are actually more directorate levels within these businesses that take the facial front from a hardware standpoint. Within a gaming developer world, they're going to have that level of prevalence. That's a lot of weight to put on your shoulders.
That's quite odd too, isn't it? I mean, usually you have a PR manager or a PR relations officer or the marketing manager or even HR perhaps get involved with these things. But, rarely would the CEO be doing some of these things. So I find that, or the, the head of the division. So you're right. It is quite unique in that regard. It's a changing face already.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no doubt, look, as I said, we'll find out more about Destiny 2 and so forth when we do. The thing that stood out for me with this particular point was that Arix had a wonderful April Fool's Day tweet where he was playing the Switch and he'd photoshopped one of the apps on his Switch with a Destiny 2 logo. And it was very good. It was a very convincing release. But of course, I think we can agree, Elias, as much as you'd like to play Destiny 2 on your little Switch, it's probably not going to be happening. But more importantly, we know that, of course, there are size limitations and hardware limitations, but we've had some really good, successful, awesome, amazing conversations about the Switch. Talk us through this. There is these cartridge cost quandary that we've got going on right now in Nintendo land.
Yeah, look, again, this is another binary article, so he's probably a better place to speak about it than I am. But the one thing I do want to say is if you've got a Switch, buy a micro SD card as well. Like day one, put it in. because it'll start saving all your stuff to it. Even when you buy cartridge games at the moment on the Switch. So Lego City Undercover is an interesting example. They've got a little bit of the game on the cartridge, but when you actually go to install it, you've got to download like a 16 gigabyte patch, which is not really like an improvement patch. It's the rest of the game, because they wanted to keep the cost of the cartridge production down. So they only put half the game on the cartridge. Now, 16 gigabyte download is massive, and also is more than half your hard drive on the Switch, because it's got the operating system. Here's the Switch, by the way. It's got the operating system and your other games taking up the rest of your hard drive. And there's only a 32 gig hard drive in it. So get a micro SD card is my tip number one. And yeah, so the use of cartridge is going to be an interesting one. So Binary, what's the article all about?
Well, the article actually goes back to it's actually about the cost of cartridges and how Nintendo are charging actually around 10% more for their games than the average PS4 and Xbox One game.
Oh, really?
So, you pay up for each of like £60 for a Nintendo Switch game, where you're paying £50 for on Xbox or PS4. Now, this is bad radio, but I'm holding, a Zelda Breath of the Wild cartridge, right, which is about the same size as a standard SD card, right? It's about the same size as a normal SD card. And like, why? Why is it not an SD card for starters, which we know can be made extremely cheaply, and expand up to what, 64 gig, 128 gig now? 12 takes an SD card. So the question, I think the frustration is coming, is why do these things cost more than a CD, or why are they even using them? Right?
There must be an answer there around proprietary. It's got or copyright protection or something, like, because if you're putting on a standard SD card, could that be their worry, that it just makes it easy to dump the game from a standard media than it would be if it's on a proprietary piece?
Or to have like a one of those ROMs that we used to put in the DS. Do you remember the
exactly? Yeah.
Just to hack the whole device.
Yeah.
True. But it's also slightly laughable though that they aren't all right. Yeah, all that's proprietary in this cartridge is that connector bit, right? The actual technology inside the cartridge, right, isn't going to be new, right? They haven't redeveloped storage or redesigned like storage.
The taste though, that taste, maybe that's the expensive part.
Like the chemical in the
taste, chemical.
But I think the fact that you buy a game for a cartridge with 54 quid and then you still have to download the rest of it is it's slightly bizarre. That's weird. I don't get it.
No.
But it's Nintendo, right? They do weird things.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Especially for Nintendo. I mean, we know, from a user point of view, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, as a Nintendo gamer or perhaps a younger audience member, having a Switch and then buying a cartridge and then have the thing download 16 gigs of data, that's not a Nintendo move. But Nintendo sounds very un-Nintendo to me.
Absolutely, and that's not Nintendo's call. That's a third-party game, and they're going, well, actually, Nintendo, you've put us in a corner where it's going to cost us too much to actually do this. Why we're gonna enforce download? Nintendo wouldn't do it, and Nintendo don't give a shit. The cost is nothing to them. They're ready for this. This is their cost that they're imposing. It's actually Nintendo again becoming prohibitive to third parties again.
Sounds like come on. These are the Super Nintendo days. Every time you produced a cartridge, you had to pay a royalty and you had to pay a production fee in order to get the cartridge produced. And this is why N64 was such a significant problem, because it was competing against PlayStation 1 and the success and simplicity and cheapness of the CD format. It's so strange. We're just going back there again.
Yeah. But Gaz, I can take this thing on the plane. It's my console. Like there's a good reason to having the cartridges, but it's it's just weird because it is their new console, and it should be comparable to the Xboxes and the PlayStation. So it's a really weird space. Anyway, digital future.
Screw it. Screw those kids and their 16 gig downloads when they get home from school. They just have to cop it. Be brutal. Be brutal. That's our motto. And I think Dark Souls has that motto too. Elias, for you, the final DLC has been released. Are you happy? Are you sad? Was it everything you hoped it to be? And what do you hope for next?
Yeah, so the final DLC for Dark Souls 3, which in theory is the last piece of Dark Souls content that will ever be released. Like the director, Hidetaki Miyazaki, has said that he's just not interested in developing new Dark Souls games.
Bloodborne 2.
Mate, if they do Bloodborne 2, please. So, you know, we all had... And I loved Dark Souls 3. You guys know that was my game of the year last year. And this is the final, like, this is the goodbye. And it's called The Ringed City, and it came out earlier this week. And we all had really high hopes for it. And it just didn't meet them. Like, I'll describe it briefly. Like, it's an incredibly beautiful game. I'm convinced now that From Software have the most amazing visual designers making video games. There's nothing I've seen that compares to what this game looks like. It's just remarkable. It's out of this world.
Is it the art design? Like, is there? Can you buy like a book of this, or is that the artist's work up that you can just go to a website and check it out? Is that what it is?
Oh wow, that's very interesting that you asked there, Gaz, because I happen to have my Dark Souls Design Works book right here. This isn't going to be very fun for the people not watching.
It's got some stains on it, mate. What's that?
Yeah, that's the stains of love. Stains of love. So anyway, the Ringed City. So the Ringed City, but from a lore perspective, it was a letdown. But also, it kind of, instead of putting together the best bits of Dark Souls, and it does have some good bits. It's got some incredible boss fights. It's got some thrilling moments. But instead of it being like consistently the best bits of Dark Souls, it also featured some of the worst bits of Dark Souls. Like, the best bits of Dark Souls is when you can explore an environment and clear out the enemies and just really have a great time. The worst bits of Dark Souls are when everything's going to kill you and you have to run like hell through the exit. And that's kind of what this DLC was, which is massively disappointing because it's such a beautiful place that I wanted to explore, but I just ran like hell through half of it. So it's a really disappointing end to the series. Still had good stuff. I'd still recommend playing it if you are a Dark Souls fan. But they've really taken on board. So you guys would have heard the get good criticism. It's just like, oh, I'm stuck at this boss, and people are like, get good, which is funny, and it's not.
The dev retweeted that, didn't they?
So the Dark Souls game Twitter account. I'll give you some context. They put out a PSA saying they're going to fix some loading screen and frame rate issues. And someone else said, and the getting my ass beaten by the Demon Prince over and over again issue. Are you investigating? And they posted the kind of funny image of a knight in a doctor's outfit pointing at a sheet of paper that says "Get good," which is kind of funny. And it's something that is kind of, I mean, it's used a lot, kind of almost ironically in some communities, but it's also become a really toxic thing in the Dark Souls community. The Dark Souls community traditionally has been one that has been trying to help each other out. This is something new. This is something unknown. This is something difficult. How do we solve this together? And that's what Dark Souls forums traditionally were. The more popular Dark Souls got, the more assholes kind of got on it. And the response to I'm stuck on this boss was get good. And unfortunately, I feel like that kind of get good mentality has filtered back up to the developers, and they're developers who used to create work that was extremely fair. It was difficult, but it was fair. You knew why you died. You knew the mistake that you'd made. the Ring City has moments in it that are just plain bullshit. It's just unfair that you died. It's just bad luck that you died. And that's that balance that they used to strike perfectly. And now with this kind of get good audience getting really vocal, and even the Dark Souls account embracing that concept, they've started making work that's just difficult for difficulty's sake, rather than being, something that's rewarding to succeed through. I don't know if that makes sense. It's really hard, even hard for me to describe, because as Dark Souls is my favorite series, and it's just a bit kind of, it's almost heartbreaking when it lets you down like this, and when the community kind of diverges into a direction that doesn't sit well with you.
This DLC sort of sounds to me a little bit, I mean, it might be incorrect, but it almost sounds like the epitome of what you said before, that they're moving on.
Maybe.
Like it might very well be that I'm not suggesting that they phoned it in, but they're at that point where they're done with it. We talked the other day about how good last episode about how good Horizon was. Because the Killzone developers are able to be given some space and perhaps some time away from a franchise that they got locked down to because of its success on PlayStation. And Sony became dependent on them for the old Killzone. It was despite the mixed reviews, sometimes I think Killzone 1 and 2 did really well. Killzone 3 probably not so much, but people loved that. But maybe that's it. They're done.
It's a good point. And the other thing that it reminded me of was so the end of Dark Souls 3, I loved. I thought, actually, if I'd known that was the end of the series, I'm like, that's a great end to the series. It reminded me of Mass Effect 3. So Mass Effect 3 was the end of a series, and it had an ending. And it was a divisive ending, but it was a definitive ending. But then after the ending, DLC came out. And it was really strange. It's just like you're kind of going back, the game's over, but you're going back and you're playing things. And the smart thing they did was they did a DLC called The Citadel, which is just fan service, top to bottom fan service. Yes. And they did that really nicely. So I think there's a lesson to be learned there from what BioWare did with Mass Effect 3. Like, either finish your game up or do your final DLC correctly.
That was you're undoubtedly the strangest DLC I think I've ever played. And I think if you remember, I think we were texting each other when one of it. I think you played it first, I think, and you were texting each other about it. And it was like you're in an apartment with your allies. Like it didn't make any sense. These are people that you were just party to save the planet before, and now you're having a party. Yeah. With canapé and you've got a library and people are having drinks, and it was weird, but it was as you say, it was beautiful fan service. So it was a sign off.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a nice touch, nice cherry on top. And that's not what the Ring City is, unfortunately. So you've got a disappointed Dark Souls fan here. I'm not as angry as I was a week ago, but I'm just feeling a bit disappointed.
Well, while you're disappointed, you can raise some of that disappointment that we had last week. Because you remember, we spent a long time talking about a game called Outlast 2, which was not going to see the light of day in Australia because of our classification board. Binary, you talked a lot to, if I remember, Binary, you actually read this transcript word for word. And probably got us banned all over the world. I don't know. But it's actually it hasn't been banned, Elias. It hasn't been banned at all. In fact, it's there was an error. We spent half of the episode talking about this, and it was all based on a submission error. Did you? Who put it? Binary, did you post this one or?
Yeah, no, I posted this one. So yeah, it's pretty it's pretty funny. Red Barrel submitted some content to the Australian Classification Board that wasn't actually in the game. Like, they stuffed up. It was like from a previous version. And the stuff that they did submit once they corrected it was totally fine. So Outlast 2 will come out in Australia. It's not going to have a problem. It's probably going to be R-rated. And it's the same as worldwide. So all of that for nothing. It was a good discussion that we had. What was funny is that we recorded it early, like on a Thursday, and I think the next day, before we even got the podcast out, the news had come out that that there was no problem with Outlast 2 in Australia. But it was a fun conversation to have anyway.
So one or two things have happened here, and I'm curious, Binary, I want to hear your point on this. One or two things have happened. Either one, this is legitimate, and someone incorrectly submitted. The claim is that someone, that the developer submitted both the game and a video from which I presume has an excerpt of the worst bits, because that's what they have to do. They have to sort of paint the worst case scenario to our classification board. And that video they claim was from the alpha version. Okay. So the claim is that they've submitted a video from the alpha version, which was not in the game, along with the game to be classified. So that's true. Or is it the alternative, and that they've turned around and actually redeployed based on that feedback some aspect or modified the scene? Is that too much I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's a clawback.
Yeah.
I think it's a clawback. And do you know what? Just put your balls on the table and say that it is a clawback. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just too easy to say, "Oh no, it was an accident. We didn't mean to do this." But I think that that's the submission to every other country or every other playable region, and we didn't do Australia separately. We should have.
I'm going to say I disagree. I reckon that they're a small indie developer. They're the sort of developer that would have, like almost benefited from this coverage. Like more people will be aware of Outlast 2 because of this. I feel like they, it's in their best interest to be more honest about it than not. But in the end, we've talked about Outlast 2 a lot more on this podcast than we ever would have before, which is, because I don't think any of us are massive like horror fans. So, I know about Outlast 2 now. I'm still not going to play it.
No, I just thought I felt it important to give it closure because we it turned into a good discussion about politics and games back then. So, but there you go. It's Outlast 2 is coming to Australia. All good, everyone. It's okay. You can stop
put away your pitchforks.
Put away your pitchforks. It's all good. And while you're putting away your pitchforks, you probably should do the same thing for Mass Effect Andromeda, because there's plenty of those that are currently have been over the last few weeks for good old Mass Effect Andromeda, God forbid. And there's two things that have happened here. One, Binary has played the sucker all the way through, so I'm very keen to hear Binary's thoughts. I only think got through to probably about maybe 10, 15 hours, but as I said last week, spent a lot of time on getting distracted by side quests. Binary, you've actually finished the game, so I'm curious to hear about that. Before we get to that, BioWare have released a statement about some of our concerns we brought forward last week. Now, this is in response, of course, to the animation problems that people brought forward, the scripting, and the character customization. Elias, you remember when the announcement came out from BioWare during Mass Effect 3 that they were making modifications to the ending. I remember losing my shit that day, not because I was, against it or for it, or whether I was just amazed that this kind of transition was happening. The message that BioWare have posted on their Twitter, did that bring back some familiar feelings? Maybe I'm off here, but I just felt, it was very apologetic.
It was interesting, wasn't it? So they're kind of trying to be diplomatic and saying, hey, we've heard some positive things, but also some critical things. And they're responding very quickly. Like they've said that on Tuesday, the 4th of April, which is only 2 days away, they're going to have more to say and more to announce about how they're responding to what they've heard. So that's really quick. It's not quite deja vu because it's such a different problem to that Mass Effect 3 problem. Like that Mass Effect 3 problem was like a narrative failure almost, or just a really massive narrative letdown after a 2-game build-up. This feedback, this has just been like a mockery of the entire game that's kind of happened on the internet. And And I'm curious to know what feedback are they going to respond to? Are they actually going to address some of the animation stuff, which I have no idea how you patch that stuff out. That's hard coded shit in the game.
A lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work and not worth it. That's way too much development. Or are they going to respond to some of the smaller criticisms that might have come out? Like, what if it's something small like saying, "Oh yeah, we know that our menus suck. We're updating a patch to fix the menus," or I mean, they can't. It's got to be something larger. But it might be narrative things. It might be, I just don't know. I'm so curious to know what they are actually going to address on April 4.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to find out because, as you say, what in what can they change? What could they promise? And what turnaround time could they offer? And maybe, Binary, this might even talk to, hell, this is what we we're just talking about before, this idea of community management. You can see this is in overdrive. BioWare immediately responding to complaints, saying that they're going to respond and giving a date, and then saying that they, welcome our feedback, et cetera, et cetera. But by God, what can they change? Binary, you probably can best answer that.
Well, what can they change? In this day and age, with a big enough patch, you can change fucking anything.
You're largely happy with things, right? I mean, to be fair,
I think most of the criticism, and we are in a bubble in terms of what we see and what we hear because of the circles we're in, right? I can't vouch for what the rest of the Mass Effect community is actually saying and how much of a bother it is for them. But for me, I've absolutely enjoyed playing the game. So much so that, I did go through the story and I didn't complete. I've not 100%ed it by any means, but I'm definitely at least 60%, and I've done the story. Playing through it again because I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I want to play it a different way, right? I played it the way that I thought that would give me the fastest results as quick as possible. Didn't know my second playthrough is going to be a lot more casual and a lot slower, and I'm definitely going to put it up on the hardest difficulty setting,
cool.
so that I get that experience, because I enjoyed it so much. Those small graphical errors and some of the the conversational trees, 1% of the game, if that. 1%, if that. Wow. Do you know what I mean? Just enjoy the game for what it is.
Hey, Binary, what did you? So I find it real. I'm really, really, really keen to hear what Binary's perspective is on Mass Effect Andromeda, mostly because he didn't play Mass Effect 1, 2, or 3. So his level of expectations are just going to be so different to what Gaz and I's are. So I'm really curious. I don't want to shift topic too much. If you want to come back to what we were just talking about, that's fine. But I really want to know what Binary thought of the game and what you liked about it. Like what sort of game is it to you?
I love my my RPGs. I love my RPGs. Always have done. I love having some character. I like being bound to a character and having some influence over their personality in game. I think Mass Effect does that really well. You have these, and I believe in Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, you only had the 2 different types of personality trees that you could sort of go down, and in this one you have 4.
It was very Jedi Sith, classic.
Yeah. Whereas this one you have 4, which is like professional, sort of slapdash. I forget what the other 2 are. Fun loving, and then another one.
Sleepy.
That's like square. And it was interesting because you had a response on each of those, and you knew that and then the response that you got back. Obviously, in the second playthrough, I'm going to find out what the different variations of those responses are, because I'll play a very different way. But I enjoyed that. I enjoy that from a game, and for me, that had it right. I go back to Fallout 4, Fallout 3. I go back to Knights of the Old Republic. I go, there's a Rima games that are similar. For me, it was everything about sci-fi that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Everything from Star Wars to Star Trek to series to all those different sci-fi games or TV series or those culture or cults or whatever which you want to put it. Mass Effect has all that for me, which is what I've enjoyed. Right, it has all the different alien races that you bought into, and they have their own individual lore. You know, time has been spent on that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The gameplay mechanics also are very good. Combat and fluid. The AI of your teammates, and the fact that you can level up your individual teammates and have them do specific roles or specific abilities to counteract yours or to complement yours, I should say, is very good. You know, you can control where they go on the battlefield, stuff like that. I've thoroughly enjoyed. So there's strategic elements. I think it's fantastic. You know, I'd give it a 9. I don't like giving game numbers because I think games are a little bit more, it's perspective, right? But if I had to give it a number, I'd give it a 9.
Cool.
The Andromeda story of us, you know, setting out to a new galaxy and, you know, turning up and sort of finding these new aliens and, you know, these whole new worlds. You know, it was a really cool concept, was that we take pictures, right, using these satellites of this galaxy. It's going to take us 600 years to get there. We get there, completely different, right? It's desolate. You know, it's all gone wrong, right? Because 600 years in time, other stuff's happened, right? And I absolutely loved that. I thought, yeah, absolutely. You know, I was bought into that whole lore with it, and then it's your struggle to try and make that your home. And I think it actually transcends to a lot of our lives. If we, you know, we see all these glorious pictures of us emigrating to Australia, and we get there and it's all sand and dust, right?
It's all Mad Max. Yeah.
You know, I loved everything. I loved everything about Mass Effect, and I'm looking forward to my second playthrough. And I recommend anybody buy it. And people who take too much reading into these, you know, these small, minute graphical issues, you can look past that very, very quickly, because the worlds are stunning. The vastness of some of these planets is incredible. The amount of stuff you can do on these planets is incredible. I loved every second of it.
Cool. Oh wow! So you dug it from, like, so one of the criticisms I've heard a lot is that it really takes a long time to get going. You didn't feel that? Did you feel like you were into it from the get-go?
Within 4 hours, I'd settled on a planet. I got my base, and I started exploring. Like, cool. I for an RPG, that's fucking quick.
So, Gaz, what?
You know?
Gaz,
in the meantime,
how about you?
I was going to say, whilst Binary sort of settled his first planet, I'm still stuck on my first ship reading codex entries. So remember I told you I get literally, like, I'll look in the journal, and if, you know, every time you discover something new, of course, it adds an entry into your codex, and I want to go into the codex. I want to read, what is it? And it's like some nonsense about how this planet has thermite and carbon and all these things and percentages that some guy probably in the writing team just made up. But I'm just there going, oh really? Yeah, really? Oh wow! Oh, this planet's cool. So yeah, I have that problem, but that's not, again, that's me with RPGs getting sidetracked and
that's what makes it. That's what makes it. But that's what makes it a good RPG, is you can play it at 2 paces, right? You can play it at the pace where you are reading all those little data pads, and they are fucking everywhere, right? Yeah. And some of them have some absolute gold in them. You know, you go and scan a bed, and the bed's like scanned, and it says a lot of human liquids are remaining on this bed, right? You know, there's these little nuggets of humor throughout the whole place, and you know, and you scan stuff that's, you know, blown up, and it gives you a little bit of history and stuff. Or you can go and smash through the main storyline. It has everything for 2 people, for 2 different types of gamer.
Is there an end game when you smash through the story? Can you go back?
Yeah. So it doesn't end. So no. Yeah. So no, you complete you complete it, and then you have Meridian, right? Completely unlocked. So then you can start exploring Meridian.
Cool.
I'm not going to spoil what Meridian actually is, but you can start then exploring it. And when that scene happened, it was incredible. Fucking brilliant. One of the best sci-fi sort of action bits I've experienced for a long time.
Nice. Can't wait.
Explore it. But then after that, everything that you haven't done already is still open to you, because because that story's done, Andromeda still needs to be made your home. Right, life is still going on, so then you can then you can just carry on with the rest, which I probably still will do, or I'll start again. But then you've got the multiplayer, right? The multiplayer is actually very good, right? You send off all your strike teams to go and do all these like missions so you can get intel and so forth, but then you can jump into those as actual battles and have an impact on the multiplayer. Is not like a separate crucible or a separate arena thing. It actually impacts the viability rating of your world, right? You go and fight the cat, and you go and
do this. These are the things you can, because I've got the app now on my iPhone. You can just jump in on your iOS and you can do a strike
teams out. Yeah, launch your strike teams out and do these.
And it sounds like a probability situation, I think, where your team may succeed and you'll get success points to the activity on that planet, or they may fail, and there's a ratio of percentage that you might fail that you're given before you send them. And
that's right.
I like how that, Elias, you made some comments. You felt in our last couple of podcasts that you didn't like how Mass Effect 3 did a lot of integration with that, and I think it went a bit too far in places. I think this is a fair compromise for you, mate. I think you might actually find it a little bit addictive. It's like a mini game, but it's not going to break a game, and it's not going to obviously positively gear your game in any obscure way just because you've got an app.
Why can't I get excited about this game anymore? Why can't I get excited? Like, I'm hearing you guys say all these positive things, and I'm too anxious. I think I said last week that I'll wait for all of this to settle down.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm going
to do that.
You're going to only benefit from it, right? You look at it like that.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not going to play it, go play Horizon for a month. Come back. Come back. You'll probably see 3 more of the ones we've talked about today on the BioWare Twitter over the next 2 months.
Yeah, exactly.
As they pinpoint their strategy of improvement.
They'll be like, we're bringing back Commander Shepard.
Yeah. Oh, you God.
But there's so many different trees of story that I did a certain way that I'm like, I want to do it a different way and see how that actually impacts. And I'll probably do multiple. I'm probably going to do multiple saves at each of those sort of choke points in the story, just to see how that sort of and then plays through. Because there are definitely a few of those moments.
Man, I know that EA tend to not do like remasters, which is, I think, unfortunate just in the case of Mass Effect. Like a Mass Effect remastered trilogy on modern consoles.
Well, just
I just feel like
1, 2, and 3 on my Xbox through backward compatibility.
One sucks right now. One sucks on Xbox right now. It's okay on PC.
Yeah, I did a run through of 1 on my Xbox 360 probably about 2 years ago, maybe. So I wanted to go back, and I literally got to the first planet, and I went, and I fuck this. Like, it's because the graphical pop-in is everywhere. It was doing way too much, what it could do at the time, and it wasn't optimized well. But pop-in is everywhere, and the frame rate is dipping constantly to like sub 10. Sub 12 frames per second. The control mechanism was a bit funky as well. The inventory was monstrous. Everything was in alphabetical order in one single list. And the version that Elias played, I'm fucking jealous, but Elias got to it a little bit after that when it came on PC. And by that time, the PC version, actually, really, Elias, I think that probably is the penultimate Mass Effect version is probably the PC one.
Yeah, but even that I played so many years ago that I don't know if that holds up. Like, I haven't tried playing that again since. So, like a nice update of that would be a ripper. Anyway, so Mass Effect has the thumbs up from the Engage crew.
Look, you know what? I'll say one thing. We've been on Mass Effect for ages. The only thing, and this, you might want to comment to this on character customization here and how it affects your game. But in the old Mass Effects and in a lot of RPGs, you build your character, and you tailor it in a certain way. So in the case of the previous ones, you'd build a biotic. Or a Jedi, if you want to call it. Let's go to Star Wars, a Jedi, if you like. You build your biotic to have those certain abilities, and maybe you'd customize the weapon loadout. But by and large, there'll be certain buffs that you get from customizing certain weapons based on that build. The way that they do it now is that in Andromeda, you can literally change out your complete build. So you can be a soldier class, but really fully customize that all the way through. And I find that, like, what I kept so far, I've been doing that, like just tweaking the loadout and tweaking my skills and attributes. And I find that it's almost affecting my mindset, because usually I go into an RPG going, okay, I'm going to be this. But now I'm like, I'm this and a little bit of this, but I'm not good at this, but I'm got a shotgun, but I'm pretty crap. I don't know. Is that it's not, maybe not game breaking, but what do you guys think of that? Is that something that should be the modern trend? Is that where we're going? We should have full customization. Like, I think I prefer the old pick a class.
Yeah, I do. I'm all for the diversity in allowing you to customize your character down to the nth degree. I think that you do I think it depends whether you're a single player or a multiplayer. And if you're team-based, right? If it's team-based, then the role of a single character actually makes a single class makes a lot of sense, and you can focus and you can build yourself in that. Within Mass Effect, though, what they do is obviously you can pick any type of skill tree you want, and with these effective profiles, you can change the outputs of your character to a certain degree. If you could do that on the fly, and that's I suppose the only criticism here is those SAM profiles, right? The integration between you and SAM. Key to actually change between. You can't change between it on the fly in the middle of combat, right? All of a sudden I'm a soldier, but actually I need to switch to an adept because I need to use some of my bionics at the same time as I'm shooting. The switch between, if they made that a little bit more fluid, whether it's a voice command, right? If you could use your voice or a voice command to do it or something like that, then it would make it have a little bit more prevalence. I just stuck with straight out soldier all the way through. And then I think, no, I didn't. I soldier, and then I unlocked explorer, and then I changed to explorer because it sort of actually overall gave me the best buffs across my type of play style.
I feel like when you get locked into a class, it does do something though. Like, it can suck sometimes because you feel like you might have made the wrong decision. But what it also does though is it makes you commit to your character, and you're like, actually, no, this is who I am.
It's the role play.
It's the role play, yeah. So I mean, that's certainly my preference. But I do like it when a game finds a creative way to let you respec a character. So say you've gotten so far, and you'll say 30 hours in, and you're like, oh, I'm like stuck on this boss. I need to work out a way to respec it. And like Dark Souls does some really interesting respec things. Like you have to sacrifice all this shit to respec, and you're like, respecing is a serious thing.
Mass Effect allows you to do that. It just costs you credits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the ship. Yeah. If you want to ship into the medical bay, you can go and do it, and it just costs you in-game currency.
So but you can do it as much as you want.
But yeah, it increases in cost every time you do it.
Okay.
I was going to say, it's not like Elder Scrolls Oblivion. You remember that when there's that section where you start in the sewer and you come out to the sewer gate, and that's your point of no return. Like, it's 110 hours on this sucker. Or you're out. You know what I mean? Like, and I remember that was a big decision. I was like, okay, am I ready? And you hit enter.
Sure you're a thief?
You are not changing your character for 120 something else. But I suppose in that way, now I think about it, it's good that they give people that customization. But I'm just curious whether what you guys would do, because I sort of prefer that specific role. But as you say, it's a bit more brutal if, particularly if you put into a class that probably isn't the most exciting or you're struggling with. Interesting times.
I've never played a game that like you've had one player and it forces you into a role. Wouldn't that be interesting? Like just by luck of the draw, especially if it was some sort of like multiplayer game or Destiny or something, and you don't actually get a choice. You are born into a specific sort of class, and that's the class you are. That's actually kind of interesting, like from a almost a law perspective, or like a social experiment perspective, is giving you less choice and forcing you to play a certain way. It would suck a little bit, but I think it's interesting concept. I'd like to see it happen.
That's what was that game? Do you guys remember that? Oh, it's escaped me now. But the game it came out just after DayZ. Rust. Thank you. Rust was exactly that, wasn't it? Because Rust, you were forced. You couldn't pick your gender. You couldn't pick your penis size. You couldn't pick your color. All those things. I thought that you're right. That's an incredible social experiment when you're forced to automatically generate a character that you have no control over. Yeah.
You have to roleplay as that character.
Yeah.
That's actual roleplay because you don't get a choice.
Yeah. So there you go. I think we've talked a lot about Mass Effect over the last couple of weeks. What was that?
That was a good tangent.
Yeah, nothing better than a tangent. Episode 25 is what we're all about, tangents. But of course, more importantly, Mass Effect is out, as we said. The review is there. Binary sounds excited. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't listen to the vitriol that you're hearing on Twitter and so forth. I haven't heard much about Thimbleweed Park, Elias. This is a game you've been playing only recently. It's just hit PC and Xbox One.
That's right, yeah. So you can get it on your Windows, Mac, Linux machines, or you can get it on your Xbox One.
I should add it's $20 on PC and $30 on Xbox One.
Yeah, that's classic. So I bought it on PC because I don't have an Xbox One, but I am playing it with a controller. So I can confirm that the controller is fine. So yeah, as I was saying at the start of the podcast, it's kind of like this throwback point and click adventure. Think Maniac Mansion, think Monkey Island 1 and 2, which are all Ron Gilbert games. So far, it's very interesting. So you start as two FBI agents who are standing over a dead body, but both of these FBI agents have alternative reasons for being in the town, and you don't know what it is yet. And it's very kind of self-referential because they're standing over the body and they're like, he hasn't been here long. He hasn't even started to pixelate. And you're like, okay, that's interesting dialogue. But the dialogue is very, very good so far. And you kind of go into town, this weird town called Thimbleweed Park. You meet the sheriff and the coroner, who I think is the same person, but they're pretending they're not, which is hilarious. And you just meet all these crazy people in town, and then they start telling you who they think the killer is. And then you end up playing as the people that they think the killer is, as the other suspects. So it's really, I've only played 2 hours so far, but so far I've played as 5 different characters. He plays the victim at first. So it's quite interesting. It's really well written. I took some notes. I'll just double check if I had anything else to add. The thing that's quite interesting about it, though, is that it's it's very like exactly as those games were back in the early 90s. So don't expect a fast-paced game by any means. This is a point-and-click classic adventure game. You will explore it at the same pace as you did one of those old ones, which is very slowly. You'll get very stuck. The game starts with a choice, which is different to what we used to have, where it offers you a casual mode, which is like a bit easier, or a hard mode, which I selected and I might regret very soon. Because in the old adventure games, if you didn't know where to go, you just beat your head against the wall for hours and hours and hours. And I really wanted to play this game before all the game FAQs came up and before all the hints came up, so I could just try to solve the game on my own without the internet kind of getting in the way. So far, it feels like the early 90s. I'm getting these mad flashbacks, unlike anything I've had. Like there's been a lot of throwback point-and-click adventure games, but none of them have felt, this has got that Ron Gilbert feeling. This has got that Monkey Island feeling in the writing.
Well, just
and the art.
You could see from, if you, I played Maniac Mansion on a Commodore 64, but if you had a Nintendo Entertainment System, you may have also played it there. And the graphic, you can see that the on-screen menus like use, open, shut, close, all the prompts that you would use in the old adventure games, the same font, the same, almost looks like the characters look really similar to the Maniac Mansion characters. So they're obviously going for that, but it's almost like Ron Gilbert. We know that he's just harnessing the modern take. There's some slight camera movements that I've noticed, like the camera pans a little bit, which obviously was, in the old versions would happen, but it would be it happened like 3 frames a second. You'd have to keep up, keep up with the characters. Yeah. But do you think Ron just never left this place? Like Ron Gilbert, I think just like he's. I guess what I'm getting at is it's like he's now got the opportunity to just go back to what he loved and knew so well and was so good at, writing and the type of gameplay. And now this is his chance to just keep doing it the way that he thought was great back then, and people will buy it.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to what his motivations was, because like he was at Double Fine when Double Fine did their Double Fine Kickstarter, which turned into Broken Age, And Broken Age is, while it is still a classic adventure game, it's still very modern, and the art style is modern. And Gilbert didn't work on it. He was just around at the time. He was working on The Cave. I don't know if you remember The Cave that Double Fine put out, which was interesting, an interesting kind of adventure game as a side-scroller experiment. You know, it was all right. But this was a Kickstarter game as well, Thimbleweed Park, and it made the explicit promise that it's going to be classic old school adventure. And like they've delivered it to a T. The music's really good too, Gaz. I'm really, really liking the music. If I have one criticism at the moment, it's that. So you know you can play all these different characters. These two FBI people. The next character you play is this clown who swears a lot. This grumpy ass clown. Imagine Krusty the Clown if every second word was beeped out, which is really fun. And then the fourth character you play is this game developer wannabe, and she wants to work for Mucus Phlegm, who make her favorite adventure games. And like Mucus Phlegm, Lucasfilm games at the time. It's a little too self-referential in a way. She picks up a broken bottle from the refrigerator, and she's like, "Oh, if this was a Sierra game, I would be dead right now." Isn't that a silly way to design adventure games?
No,
but that's not the only time they've made that kind of reference. So everything that's written is very charming.
There was a fierce competition and collaboration and respect between those two, you know, back in the day.
Yeah. Well, Sierra kind of defined it, didn't they? They defined the genre, and then Lucasfilm came along, and you know, Loom and Monkey Island, and you know, came along and said, "Hey, this isn't fun. You're dying from pressing the wrong button and falling pixel first out of a bridge, or picking up a broken bottle and dying." You know, and they made a no death scenario, which is the same in Thimbleweed Park. There's no death. So it's a very self-referential in that way. You can collect. The other thing is that it's got literal pixel hunting. You can collect little specks of dust. I think there might be one on each screen. I don't intend to find them all, but yeah, literally you can pick up specks of dust, which is probably a joke about pixel hunting. It's a very self-aware game. So far, I'm really enjoying it just because the characters are great. It's very well written. I don't know if it's going to get annoying with all these references to itself and to the genre. I don't know that yet. We'll see. Hopefully they get that out of the way so I can just get into the story.
If it doesn't go for longer than maybe 5 hours, you could probably maybe 5 to 8. But after 5 hours, you're probably going to be.
I've got a friend who has a review copy, and she messaged me. And she said she had been playing for about 10 hours and she thought she was about 40% through. What? So I'm not sure how big this game is, or if she's just really bad at, she's pretty good at adventure games. So it's going to be interesting. So that's actually probably what I'll be playing for the next little bit is Thimbleweed Park.
So there you have it, Thimbleweed Park. That's probably the longest conversation you'll ever get on a podcast about Thimbleweed Park. But you know what? That's a good thing because I don't think many podcasts are going to talk about it. I think they should. It's little things like that add flavor to Steam. And it's better than what, to be frank, not to pick on Steam, but every week when you log into Steam, there's something else that's got a pre-alpha, early game release state that's sort of half broken, half janky. There's some cool things that are up, of course, that I'll talk about perhaps if we've got time later. But it's good to see Thimbleweed Park. But,
or the latest anime game. I don't know why it keeps advertising anime games to me, Steam. Like what the hell?
Must have searched for
something. Must have played one Japanese game at some point, and now it's just like anime.
Now, of course, no doubt you're playing that game with your Xbox 360 controller, as you say. Binary has not had that privilege. Converting over to PS4 has been struggling with the DualShock. Unfortunately, Binary, you have solved this problem.
I have, thankfully, at the cost of £90. But
shit!
Ouch! That's a lot of money, at least. What's that in Australian? It's like $200 Australian.
I think it's $6,354 Australian. What? No, it is. I reckon that's $200 Australian.
What? 84 pounds I paid.
Gaz's going to do the conversion now. So anyway, what did you buy?
So I bought the. Oh shit! Let me get the box. So, bad radio. but I bought the Nakon PS4 Pro Revolution controller.
Box.
It's a nice box, actually. It's a really nice box. So I researched for a while, and I saw because the PS4 controller is okay. It has no weight to it. The trigger buttons don't sort of have any type of traction or sort of feedback from them. And this is just my opinion, obviously, and it doesn't feel like I'm holding anything. I guess I'm slightly spoiled because obviously I have the Xbox Elite controller, which is a thing of beauty in terms of its build quality, paddles, the feedback from the controllers, everything customizable wise. So I was looking for something that's similar. I knew I wasn't going to beat it, but something similar. So I'll be looking at reviews, and I've been speaking to a few people that do a bit of streaming and who are hardcore PS4 players. Eric's actually did a very good review of this controller and another one, and this one came out on top on all the reviews. And it's actually quite a small unknown gaming hardware or controller based company called Nakon, and it's almost exactly the same as the Xbox Elite controller. So you have the asymmetrical joysticks, the paddles. So you sort of actually have rocker switch paddles on the bottom. So that instead of actual 4 paddles, you have a rocker switch. So I'm not sure if you can actually see, but it's like you have a push in or a push or pull mechanism to be able to trigger the 4 different paddles.
What do they
underneath? Do? So you can program them to be any button from the front.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's programmable to be any of those buttons. Usually what I do is I'll program them to be like those 4 buttons there, so that I don't need to take my fingers off the joysticks. So you can actually change the weight of the controller. So in the base here, you've actually got 2 areas where you can actually change and put different weights in the controller itself. So you can actually adjust the weight of the controller. I've made it as heavy as possible. So it's it's about 50 grams worth of weight in there, just to give it a bit more feel. The button pressing, the touchpad are very good. I like it a lot. And the bit that I was actually impressed with the most was you take this controller and you plug it into your PC, and you get a fully customizable app on the PC.
Oh.
And it downloads different profiles onto the controller itself. So you can have 4 different profiles on the controller for different mappings for different games that you can switch over at a flick of a button on the back.
Okay,
you got these 2 buttons up here.
Yeah.
And
is it always wired?
It's wired, because I'm assuming wireless latency or something like that. But it is wired.
Yeah. So I just checked. I was just going to say, I checked locally. It's $180 Australian if we bought it here.
Yeah. The conversion's actually $150, but the Australia tax. Good old Australia.
And how does that compare to the Xbox Elite price?
So the Xbox Elite over here is another £40.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, Xbox like 200.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you reckon, Binary? Like thumbs up? It's like a must-have.
This is what will help me make the PS4 my main console.
Okay.
Yeah. But a lot of people, swear by DualShock, and Elias, we've all, it's probably the one thing in gaming that has probably separated our opinions, and that's probably because of pure, Binary. You use the word spoiled. I won't use that word, but I'll probably say just biased because of experience. I've been using an Xbox oriented controller for so long that I found the PS4 controller very jarring. But I have to admit, in recent times, I said this to you guys on Discord, with the Division, I've noticed that I've actually quite enjoyed playing Division with the PS4 controller. Elias, you would say that perhaps could it be fair to say that it's going to be a better purchase for someone who's sort of maybe in my shoes or maybe in Binaries, because you've always been pretty satisfied?
Yeah, I mean, because I went from the PS3 controller, which I can now admit was a piece of shit, the PS4 controller felt like heaven. Like it blew my mind. It still feels really good to me. Like I'm not happy with some of the build quality. I have gone through a few, but that's because I've played a lot of PS4 on what I consider to be a really excellent controller. I've played with an Xbox One controller a little bit. I haven't played with an Elite. I certainly prefer the DualShock 4 to the standard Xbox One. But I don't know what the Elite is. But it's just about feel, isn't it? Like I like having the two sticks
So for me, it's
side by side. Whereas
all goes
Xbox
to
players are going to love having that diagonal analog sticks. Yeah, sorry, Binary.
Yeah, no. For me, it's all about comfort. It's about comfort. No, I've got slightly, I wouldn't say large hands, but I've got manly hands. And holding the PS4 controller, it feels too small. Like I'm having to
big hands.
I'm having to change my comfortability to be able to access all the buttons. Whereas on the Xbox controller, it sits well, and I don't have to keep adjusting my hand position on the controller to be able to touch all the buttons comfortably. And that's what the neck-on for me provides is that scope. It's that comfortability in my hands. It's weird, right? But the PS4 controller, I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn, so the DualShock. My thumbs actually just on the inside from holding the analog sticks or moving around actually start to get a little sore.
Yeah,
I don't know whether that's pushing them too hard or what, or because of the way that they're shaped. My thumbs actually start to feel sore, whereas with the Xbox that just doesn't happen. And the neck-on is actually shaped exactly the same as the Elite controller. So my presumption is that I'm not going to have that feel after a 3 or 4 hour gaming session.
Interesting. Like so just to remind the listeners, so that's the Nacon Revolution Pro controller for PlayStation 4. I hadn't heard of it before tonight, so that's actually really interesting. Thunder CT in the chat, thanks for tuning in, dude. Is saying they're $115 US, which is great. Now, what you just described with your Thor's thumb has actually reminded me, and I'm curious. I know we've got to wrap up, but like I'm up all night. I don't give a shit. Reminded me of, and I'm curious to know if you guys have had bad controller experiences. The GameCube controller and Metroid Prime 2. Now, Metroid Prime 2, you had to hold in one of the L2 buttons to kind of like target shit.
Yeah.
Sorry?
The grey clicky ones. You had to hold
the grey clicky ones, and you had to really jam it in to get it to work. And so, and Metroid Prime 2 I loved it. I played the crap out of it. I played it solidly for like a number of days. I had finger cramps from the way that was designed and from that GameCube controller for about a week or two after finishing that game. I didn't mind, but my fingers were so sore. Have you guys had any like nightmare controller experiences?
The 3DS.
Yes.
After 40 minutes of holding the 3DS, I'm done. I have red marks on it because the corner edges of the 3DS, they're not, I mean, they're curved, but they're not smooth. So for me, it's always been that. The only other example is probably going back to what was it? The Xbox Duke, the original Xbox, the original Xbox controller. Griff and we used to play, a mate of mine and I used to play Halo 1 way back when on co-op, and we would play that thing till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on co-op. And my hands were too little. I couldn't. So the Xbox One S, when that thing came out, was like godsend. Midget hands. Binary's like, the Duke. I want all the Dukes. The Duke the best.
Oh, the Duke was the worst.
Cool.
Interesting times. So Naked Control, there you go. We've got some good prices, and thanks to Thunder CT. Enjoyed your stream the other day, man. It was a pleasure to have a watch and see what was going on and to retweet your love. You've mentioned there, as Ellis pointed out, 115 US for Nacon, 180 for Australian, and £90 UK. Look at that. We're hitting all regions, all tigers. That's what we hear. We're a multicultural podcast.
Now, Nacon, we haven't received our free controllers yet, Gaz and I. Like, we're doing this free plug for you. We're even like telling you, the prices, and it's been a rave review. So, anytime, mate. I hope you're listening, Mr. Nacon.
Mr. Nacon. That's got to be his name, right? That's the CEO.
Oh yeah, he handcrafted each one.
Oh dear God! Oh dear God! Now, of course, we are coming to the back end of things. We're nearly about out of time. I think Binary does have a life to get back to, and so forth. In the context of gaming and whatnot, as we wrap up, what we're up to over the next week, as I said, I think I'll be looking at Mass Effect, and I'm definitely going to get Thimbleweed Park. So I'll be curious to see how that pans out over the next week. Ilias, you'll be jumping into some Persona?
I may be. So I'm definitely going to play a lot more Thimbleweed Park. But Persona 5, which is the game that I've been waiting for quite some time. Persona 4 is easily my favorite JRPG of all time. So Persona 5 is coming out on April 4. I'm very keen to play that. I'm really overwhelmed by how many games I want to play right now. Like between Persona 5, what's the other one, that big one that I haven't played? Horizon. And Nier Automata, I'm just like, what the fuck do I play? And so I'm so overwhelmed that I'm not playing any of them and just playing other things like Wood Park and, little indies. So, yeah, but potentially I'll have played Persona 5 in a week. We'll see how the week goes.
Awesome. Brownie, what are you thinking about? What's on your agenda? Maybe some sleep.
Some sleep. Time for the rest of the day. I will be playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I have picked up Battlefield 1 on the PS4, so I am going to be playing a bit of that. I've got to do a couple. I've got to these this week, so I'll be taking my Switch with me. That's about it, really. Look, I might have a couple of nights off this week, just have a bit of a relax. Maybe watch a film.
Movies.
Dude.
Movies.
What's a movie?
How do you interact with it?
Blu-ray.
Blu-ray menu. What sort of input device?
How are the animations in this movie?
How's the facial animation?
Dialogue.
But yeah, so I should probably have a little bit more of a relaxing week. I think definitely a little bit of Division, get my weeklies done. But that's about it. That is about it, really. Until next week.
Yeah. Awesome. I think what I might do, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about Player Unknown's Battlegrounds, which is basically a King of the Hill game on PC. It's still early access, and it is, of course, in 2 weeks, it is driven to #1 overnight. Well, in 3 weeks, not really overnight, though. But it's really popular. It's doing really well, and it's actually the guy that made. He did a mod, of course, Player Unknown's mod for Arma 3, and then was one of the developers on H1Z1. So this is basically his third outing in the project, and this thing's right up my alley. So Elias, I think Chutney and I are probably going to buy this. A mate of ours is going to buy this on PC. You basically get dropped off a helicopter, you jump in, and it's King of the Hill. So it's you land with nothing. You've got to find your equipment, find your weapons, and you've got to survive. And the funniest story, sorry?
What's it called again?
It's called it's really weird. It's called Player Unknown's Battleground.
That's terrible. That's a terrible name.
Yeah. Player Unknown is his handle. But
they should have called it. They should have called it King of the Hill with Chutney and Gaz.
It's really strange. But the funniest thing I read this week was that, of course, there's like 50 people that get dropped in the map. So it's up to you. Maybe it's more. I could be wrong. Let's say 50, 60. And obviously, you've got to be the last man standing. 2 of these guys were in a car, and they flipped the car and landed upside down while they were driving. And there was probably about, 30 people left. And they stopped there and went, let's just stay in here. So they stayed in the car, and one of them had a sniper rifle, and they were just taking pot shots at random people if they came close. But no one knew where they were because they were inside a car, and it was too hard to see from a distance. So most people were going down around them, and they just sat it out and just waited for 15, 20 minutes for the map to just disintegrate. And then as a pair went out, hunted down the last 5 players and won the match by sitting in
that sounds awesome. I've forgotten already the name of it because the name was so shit. What was it? I'm trying to find it on Steam.
Player Unknown's Battleground.
Oh, there it is. So it's $30 US.
30 US, yeah.
Um,
So I'm seriously thinking about getting that. But I don't know. It's one of those things you want to be able to play it with people. I think I'm not going to be enjoying it going out there by myself, getting ganked every 2 seconds. But anyway,
I'm always
that's what I'll be
really
doing.
wary about early access games, but yeah, maybe I need to get over that and maybe play with you.
Yeah, it's really yeah, like it sounds pretty polished. So don't forget, this is his third outing, so it's not like you can argue he's kind of taken his learnings and tried to just make this his own project because he wants to do everything the way that he felt was the best. Which could be pros or cons to it, but that's probably where I'm headed, guys. But look, I think we do need to wrap this puppy up. It's been a good cast. Our 25th anniversary, no doubt.
Oh,
Absolute
yeah.
pleasure to talk to you guys once again.
Absolutely.
It's been fun. Always fun.
Always fun. I think we've got a good flow. I think we're doing well these days.
And it's been a real treat to have people in the chat. Like, I hope, hopefully we can keep doing this in the future and you guys can keep joining in the chat. It's actually been really, really nice. I mean, I felt a lot more self-conscious. And like, I actually had to put a shirt on this week. But no, it's been a real treat. So thanks for that.
Yeah. You're looking pretty tight there. Pretty compact, Elias. An awkward joke.
Awkward silence. Yeah, awkward silence. Way to end the podcast. Good job.
Trying hard, guys. Trying hard here.
Great job.
That's a comical reference that no one will get other than Elias and me. But anyway, sorry about that. No doubt we're going to wrap this up. As I said, we've still got another day. Whilst Australia is about to go to bed, it's midnight here. We're going to go to sleep on Sunday night. Of course, the US is only woken up or just woken up recently. The UK brethren are sort of approached midday lunchtime. So there's still gaming time to be had in the Division Community Weekend. Be sure to jump in, retweet, use the hashtag TDC Weekend, Binary.
That is exactly it.
Yeah. Keep getting it wrong in the context of things. And what else can we expect, Binary? Anything that we should be celebrating over the next few hours?
There's going to be streams sort of literally all the way up until 11 p.m. EST. So make sure you follow DZR Twitter for that, so you can get the latest updates and of who's streaming now and when.
Very cool. Watch the Twitters. Jump into Discord and say hello. You can check us out at dzrgaming.com. Click on the join the Discord button and jump in and speak to all the awesome people. We'll see you in there, of course, along with everyone else who's talking about the division right now. Destiny 2, certainly Destiny's having a resurgence right now and all the good things to come. I'm Olgaz. You've got Elias, Binary. Of course, we can hit Elias at Elias Nora. N-O-H-R-A.
That's correct. Get good, kids.
Binary. Get good. Make sure you post lots of get good memes to Elias. Do that, everyone. At Elias, N-O-H-R-A. As many get good memes you can post to him as possible. That's your mission this week.
And my response to you all will be, yeah, get fucked.
I just fucked your Twitter feed. And of course, Binary is at Binary Num. Anything we could post your way to piss you off, Binary?
No, I'm pretty flaccid. You're good.
I know about
so
that.
we're sending Binary lots of flaccid imagery. Interpret that as you will.
Yep. Oh dear. And I'm of course at Ogaz at OH_GAZ. As a group, you can collectively reach us at Dark Zone Report. Of course, you know that familiar from our community weekends. And of course, we've really enjoyed this. I think no doubt Binary will be running a few more of these in the coming weeks, and even start to think about Destiny. We really want to have a think about how we shape that. We've got a few guys looking at some events we can run for current Destiny, just to bring that into the conversation and get ready for Destiny 2. Have some more news, of course, in May, and then hopefully some more footage in June at the E3 conference. We'll wrap it there, guys. Thank you for your time. Have an awesome night, everybody, and we are out.
Bye. Bye. Elias is